Good morning. Thank you for joining us for our September Wellness webinar. My name's Kate Twitty and I'm the Pro Marketing Coordinator here at ZYTO. Today I'll be your host. I'm really excited for today's presentation. We'll be joined by Tracey Stroup, who will be talking about biohacking the MTHFR gene mutation. Before we get started on today's presentation, I just wanted to quickly highlight some new and exciting things we have going on here at ZYTO. A few months ago, we released our Today's Basic Immunity Report for our balance system. The new balance report focuses on the 6 foundational areas of immunity: the immune system, the gastrointestinal system, the lymphatic system, the respiratory system, mental and emotional stress, sleep. And with this report, we added more than 20 new biomarkers. Like I said earlier, this report's available to all of our balance customers. And if you have any more questions or want to learn more information about this report, there's a link right here to our YouTube video where we go over the report in more depth. I also just wanted to highlight our Today's Immunity Biosurvey. This is for our Select and Elite systems. This new add-on biosurvey allows you to scan for more than 280 biomarkers to determine which areas of immunity may need the most support. You can see top responses for your selected product, general, and service virtual items. You can select from more than 600 no-sode virtual items for homeopathic output. You can gain important insights into immunity from the 6 different reports and vectors tabs. If you have more questions, you can learn more at zyto.com/todays-immunity-biosurvey. Without further ado, here's Tracey Stroup.
Well, thank you for the introduction, and I'm so excited to be here. I actually really enjoy ZYTO technology, and I use it in my practice, so it's been a great tool. So today we're going to learn a little bit about biohacking MTHFR mutation, and this is something that has been pretty prevalent in my practice, so I'd like just to explain it. A little bit about me. I have a bachelor's of science in exercise and sports science. I have a minor in nutrition. I'm a level 2 digestive specialist from the Food Enzyme Institute. I'm a naturopathic doctor. I'm also the director of education for Nutritional Frontiers. I've owned several wellness businesses. I'm also a natural health business consultant. I help people scale their businesses. I have about 25 years of experience in the industry in health and wellness, and I'm a mom and wife and lover of Jesus. So that's a pretty quick summation. But today we're going to learn about MTHFR mutation, and in the words of Dr. Ben Lynch, genes load the gun, but environment pulls the trigger. And that's really important for us to realize, simply because we like to blame our genes for everything. And while they're very important, we can actually transcribe differently from our DNA and actually help our genes do better things in our body. So the interesting thing about MTHFR mutation that we're going to learn today is that it's a permanent alteration. However, you can very well manage it by biohacking with our new innovations through supplementation and different pathways that we can use to help people that have this mutation. The other interesting thing is we like to say that genetics are passed down from mom and dad, they're hereditary. But this particular mutation is acquired. It can be turned on by different emotional, physical, nutritional traumas to the body. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. But I want to make sure that we have a very basic general understanding, and one of the things that I always say is MTHFR, or methylation, is like a bicycle. And so when we talk about MTHFR mutation, we're really talking about the process called methylation in our bodies. And this is a very unique process that helps us repair cells and detoxify, and it's very big. And so I just want everyone to understand that we're doing a broad overview look at MTHFR mutation. We can get as deep as we want on polymorphisms and enzymatic processes, but today I just want to get everybody on the same page, and if ZYTO wants to have me back later, we can go into the different polymorphisms. So let's start with just the process of methylation, and what is that? Well, methylation is a bicycle. So the back wheel is your B vitamin cycle, and your front wheel is what we call the methionine cycle. Now, both of these cycles have to work in unison. They have to work together. They have to communicate. And so what does this process do? Well, the process of methylation in the body is used for cellular repair, creating new cells and helping old cells either identify themselves to be destroyed or to repair cells utilizing nutrition and recycling of older cells. It also is the pathway of detoxification. So if we know that this pathway of methylation does these two things, we understand that everything we put into our body has to be utilized efficiently, and we have to be able to get things out so that we don't become over toxic or have what we call a toxic load. So this is you, and you're at the top of the methylation pathway, and let's say you eat something, maybe a steak, maybe something nutrient dense, which is very important. It's going to go down for, very layman's terms, and again, this is very over surface, so, it's not going to be in-depth science, but I just want everyone on the same page. It's going to break down into two pathways. One is the B vitamin cycle, and the second cycle is what we call methionine. So in your B vitamin cycle, you have a main B vitamin called folic acid. And you may have heard about this with women that are pregnant. They always want them to get more folic acid. And a lot of those studies came out with neural tube defects because they were realizing that babies that were born with spina bifida and things of that nature, it was due to low folic acid. But what they're finding out today is actually that it's due to the lack of conversion of folic acid. The second thing we have to realize is protein is extremely important in the methylation pathway and the ability to break it down into the appropriate amino acids so that both of these systems can work together. So what all does this repair? Well, DNA, RNA, your immune system, hormones, and neurotransmitters. And that's important to understand that these pathways are very important and they help create all systems and functions in the body. Think about DNA transcription to genes, RNA replication of those messages, your immune system responding in the right ways, not too much, not too little, your hormones staying in balance, and your neurotransmitters, basically how you feel, the way you balance your serotonin and dopamine. All of that begins and ends in the process of methylation. So there's this cool gene called MTHFR that stands for methyltetrahydrofolate reductase. Big word, we're just going to use a small little acronym for it. But that gene is responsible for coding all the enzymes in this methylation pathway. And so it codes the gene codes the enzyme for the conversion of folic acid into what we call a bioavailable folate. So we need an activated form of all the B vitamins. And so the back wheel on a bicycle is the power. It's what fuels the direction you go in. The front wheel of the bicycle really determines which way you turn. So when we have this conversion, utilizing this gene that's talking to all these enzymes and coding them to convert folic acid to folate, this starts an activation of all the other B vitamins in the enzymatic processes. And what happens is your methylated B12 then carries these little methyl groups that are created by this reduction process. You get an offshoot of methyl groups. Those methyl groups come across the bike frame to the front wheel and they actually bind with our broken down amino acids. So depending on what amino acid pathway it chooses will determine which way the bicycle goes. So we can be creating DNA transcription, RNA replication, immune system function, hormone balancing, and neurotransmitters. So this entire process has to work. You have to be able to convert your B vitamins adequately with the right coding in the right amounts, and you have to be able to break down protein into usable amino acid forms. If we have that, then we have this perfect unison of cellular repair and production. Now, as with anything, any process in your body is going to have a byproduct. If you guys think about working out, right, you're lifting weights and you're getting a buildup of lactic acid. Well, that lactic acid can be a hindrance if it's left in the muscle bellies or within the structure. It can actually cause the muscles to deplete of oxygenation and you won't be able to recover. But your body's really smart, so it takes that lactic acid, it moves it into the Krebs cycle, and that Krebs cycle then you get sustained energy. Well, the same thing happens here with methylation. You get a byproduct called homocysteine. And that homocysteine becomes problematic if we don't convert and recycle it. So, along with a few B vitamins and some N-acetylcysteine, the homocysteine is converted back up into the methionine cycle where it's used to create SAMe. And SAMe is all about good feeling in the brain and good serotonin and dopamine. It's very important for our brain health. It also is converted to what we call our major antioxidant in the body, glutathione. And so you may have heard of glutathione, you may have utilized glutathione in your practice. This is why it's important. It's a major antioxidant and it's used for primary detoxification in the body. So that's a really quick kind of synopsis of MTHFR made simple by utilizing a bicycle. So what affects methylation in general? Well, for the whole world, There's several things that affect methylation, and since this process happens in each and every one of us, we have to be aware of what will break it down. What's going to keep your body from reducing folic acid to a bioavailable folate? What's going to keep your body from detoxifying? Really important that we know this. Well, stress, number one, emotional or physical. So you have to remember that oxidative stress, your body doesn't know the difference between eating a Big Mac or breaking up with your boyfriend. Stress is stress. You have an increase in the pathways that are going to be putting you into fight or flight, right? Sympathetic nervous system, and then parasympathetic drops. So stress is stress to the body. It could be a toxicity. It could be a food that you're sensitive to. We have to figure these out as practitioners for our clients. So also lack of sleep and recovery, extremely important, and the number 2 health cause in our country. So this is a really big health issue pressing on us today, and it usually is a result from high stress. People aren't sleeping. And then we have high estrogen. So high estrogen is another thing that can decrease the methylation pathway's function. And with all the exposure to plastics, makeup, everything that has estrogen, we have to be aware of these. So this affects a lot of people, the majority of people. So we have these methyl burners. And what does that mean? Well, basically when you have stress and no sleep and high estrogen, what happens is you start to burn off these methyl groups. So if you don't have methyl groups, they can't bind with your amino acids, and you can't create cool DNA and RNA and immune system and hormones and neurotransmitters, and you're certainly not producing enough glutathione, so you become toxic and deficient, and you're not recovering. So this has a trifecta that happens of issues just simply by not converting that folic acid to folate and keeping that back tire of that bicycle nice and inflated. What's another thing that affects methylation, and this is what we're going to talk about today, it's genetic mutations and what they're calling MTHFR SNPs. So a lot of initials to basically say methyltetrahydrofolate reductase gene has certain single nucleic polymorphisms, and that means a mutation on one side or both sides of the ladder on that little double helix called DNA, and we're going to learn about that now. So I just want to give you guys a little bit of information. I'm not going to go through the foundations of health. I think this is pretty core with everybody that's probably watching. If not, I just want to emphasize that regardless if you have or do not have the MTHFR mutation, nutrition, hydration, movement, sleep, elimination, and emotional wellness, keeping those 6 things under control is vital for you as a healthy individual or someone that may have a mutation. It's really important that we eat organic, non-genetically modified foods and real foods. It's important we keep our hydration up, that we exercise every day to keep our detoxification and elimination pathways open, that we get good sleep and we recover, that we keep our bodies clean and utilize certain cleansing protocols throughout our lives, and that we keep our stress and emotional wellness under control. You know, there's a thing to be said about physical manifestations in the body coming from trapped emotions, and it's really important that we keep all of these things under control and that, you know, we really pay attention to them. So I always start with the foundations with my clients, even if they have a genetic mutation. All right, so let's talk about this mutation. Well, genes, this is to function correctly, they each depend on thousands of little proteins to do their jobs right? So a mutation can cause a protein to malfunction or be missing entirely, and it can set off a cascade of issues. When you have a single nucleic polymorphism, it means that one little thing in that entire genetic code can be off, which can cause severe dysfunction, anywhere from a 30% inefficiency to a 70% inefficiency depending on the polymorphism. So as you can see here with this genetic strand, we have the T and the C that are flipped. So that one single nucleic polymorphism can cause a cascade of dis-ease in the body and symptoms that you wouldn't otherwise expect. So remember in 4th grade when we learned about the DNA and the double helix and the telomeres and all that, who knew 4th grade was so important? But this is just to show you what a single nucleic polymorphism is. So we have this double helix strand, and as you can see, we have something like a ladder rung. Well, there can be one side of that ladder rung that is mutated or coding improperly, or it can be both sides. So if you have one side of the double helix ladder rung that's mutated, that's called a heterozygous, meaning one or single. If both sides of the same ladder rung are mutated, that's called homozygous. And that's going to be important later when we talk about things like C677T homozygous, C677T heterozygous. That tells you the level of conversion inability in your client. If someone's heterozygous, they'll be able to convert folic acid a little bit better than someone that has a homozygous mutation or on both sides. So that's just a little note for later, and I wanted you to get a visual on that. Excuse me. So the MTHFR gene provides instructions. It helps with processing of the vitamin folate from folic acid, and it converts homocysteine back into that methionine cycle so that we can make appropriate levels of SAMe, and also, most importantly, our major antioxidant glutathione. Excuse me. So, there are two main MTHFR mutations that they're talking about. There's over 50 variants, so I don't want you to think there's only two, because when you get an MTHFR test, you're going to get an entire list of variants. But the two that they have studied the most, that are most impactful right now that they're finding, are the 677T and the 129HC. Now, I'm not going to get into all the symptomology of each of these polymorphisms, or even what we call the heterozygous compound, which I'm going to show you in a minute. I'm going to just give you a general protocol that you can utilize on everybody, and that general protocol will bring them up in the methylation pathway enough for you to discover more about the specific polymorphism that they have. And again, I can always do more with this as we keep going and learning about MTHFR mutation. So the MTHFR gene actually changes the way people metabolize and convert nutrients and how well they detoxify. It also will completely disrupt neurotransmitters and hormones and DNA transcription, RNA replication, which can really impact our immune system. And if you think about a time such as this, when we're in a situation where we have a virus, that can be very impactful for those that have MTHFR mutation. So it's just an alternate encoding, and so the pieces don't quite fit for what they're trying to do. And this is just, again, another visual for you to see that here's that single nucleic polymorphism, and when the genes try to code and should have a normal shape, it really doesn't. It has like an altered shape, and it doesn't quite fit right. So you don't get quite the right code. So it's like taking a right turn instead of a left, and you end up in a completely different state than where you thought you were going. Not that that's ever happened to me, but probably. Okay, so research indicates that 45% of people have MTHFR mutation. Now think about that. That's almost half of our population in the United States. So half of our population has a decreased ability to turn folic acid into folate. They have a deflated back tire. They also don't know which direction to go in. So we have a lost community of health. Now, think about the other half of the population who's under stress, not sleeping well, and exposed to estrogen. So really, in all reality, everybody has a methylation pathway that's not working at optimal levels. But for those that actually have the mutation, you have lifestyle on top of a mutation, and now you have the bullet in the gun and you've just pulled the trigger. So, can we overcome what we are on paper? Absolutely, and that's where biohacking comes in, and innovation, and really cool supplements, and knowing which polymorphism we have, and utilizing ZYTO technology to ask better questions, to even get more testing if we need it. And so there's very cool things that we can do with the technology as well. So dozens of health conditions are tied to this mutation, lists and lists, hundreds. So this is what I call a multifaceted approach to a client. It's not just one thing, it can be 10 things, and it's really about being a detective of what you prioritize and how you phase your protocols for the best compliancy and the success of your client and for you. So 50 known variants, 2 primary. Let's talk a little bit about how this happens. So I'm sure everyone remembers the Punnett squares from high school or grade school, wherever you learn them. Mommy has brown eyes, dad has blue eyes. You're going to get the recessive gene of brown and blue, and then somebody marries somebody else, and all of a sudden you have 2 people with brown eyes that have blue-eyed babies, and everyone's like, how'd that happen? Well, here's how it happens. So the dad can be a carrier and the mom can be a carrier of the genetic mutation, and so they're going to have 4 separate children. Let's say they have a family of 4. One child may have no polymorphisms because they get the healthy, they get the no SNP is what we call, no single nucleic polymorphism. They get 2 gray sides, right? That means none. So this child has no mutations. He's just affected by the world. And then you have child 2 and 3 that might be a carrier. So they have some reduction, but not a lot. And then you have child number 4 that might actually get both, right? They maybe get the 677 from mom and the 129 from dad. And now that child has a bunch of different issues, and they have one sick child or one really sick child out of 4. So here is where, and I don't want to go into a for or against any type of medications or foods or vaccinations, but child number 4 is going to be highly sensitive to the world, to toxicity of any kind, things like glyphosate, things like heavy metals. This child is not going to be able to recover, and this child's immune system is going to be either too high or too low. Immunocompromised, meaning their immune system just shuts down and stops working, or autoimmune. So you have to remember that we're all individualized, and we have to look at more than just a generic protocol for everybody when it comes to a health approach. We have to individualize. So you would have an individualized program for 4 different children in one family based on their polymorphisms. So you can see over here, if we do that again, 1298C, 677, both of these carry just one snippet, right? They're heterozygous. They just carry one copy of each. And well, here's you. Now you got both. And this is called heterozygous compound because you don't have the same genetic mutation twice. You have 2 different ones. And that's actually the mother of all mother of genetic mutations when it comes to MTHFR. We're going to learn about that in a second. So here's the terminology I was using. Homozygous, meaning the same gene is passed from both parents, right? And you can have 2 copies of that or 1 copy. Heterozygous, meaning just one side of that ladder is broken. Homozygous, meaning both sides of the ladder broken. Now the compound heterozygous, this is 1 copy of the 677T and 1 copy of the 129. And that causes normally a 70% reduction in your ability to convert folic acid to folate, and a 70% reduction in your ability to detoxify appropriately. So it's a very sensitive mutation, and it requires a lot of managing and maintenance of your client throughout as you're helping them. So when you get somebody that's a heterozygous compound, you as a practitioner are going to have to monitor them a little bit more closely than somebody that wouldn't be. So here are all the enzymes that are active in this methylation pathway that the MTHFR gene codes. And as you can see, if any of these enzymes are coded to do the wrong thing, well, you can have B12 deficiency, you can have high homocysteine, you can have methionine, low protein, low hemoglobin, anemia, all kinds of things that come from B12 and red blood cell production. I mean, this really does determine SAMe levels. Look at all the things that can be affected. And also your inability to detoxify. So you can have high incidence of cancer because people are not identifying and getting rid of bad cells. So this is a really big thing. And if half the people are suffering from this, we have to know what this is and we have to know how to approach it. Okay, so here's your SMP breakdown. That's a single nucleic polymorphism. You can have people that are 677T. Now this has been studied the most and is the most common polymorphism that you'll see. You'll see either 677T heterozygous, one side of that ladder is broken, or 677T homozygous. Both sides are broken. You can have the 1298C, right? One side heterozygous, both sides homozygous. Or as I said, you can have the heterozygous compound, which is a copy of the 677 and the 129. So that's really the one that we have to look at as the most sensitive. But guys, I want you to understand there is hope. We can go around these mutations with really good, cool supplements, and we can biohack around it. It's just really about the right forms in the right amounts at the right time, and then managing that client. Okay, so we're gonna walk through these. So activated B vitamins. Well, the beautiful thing about innovation with all the things that we have going on in our world, we've applied that innovation to supplements. And we have come up with great formulas at Nutritional Frontiers and other companies that do this of what we call activated or methylated B vitamins, okay? B vitamins can't be absorbed in folic acid form. You have to remember that's a synthetic form and it's the least absorbable. And then you have 4 phases that it has to go through in order to be bioavailable. Well, you're looking for companies that use the 3rd or 4th generation where you have the methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase, and that's either followed by calcium or glucosamine salt, which is even better. So you want to be a label reader and understand. So depending on the SNP, your ability to convert that folic acid synthetic form to activated folate can be 70 to 30% reduced, which means you're going to have 70 to 30% less functional cells and 70 to 30% less ability to detoxify. So that's big stuff, and we know that. So again, here's what's cool. You got your methylated B vitamin you take in supplement form. Now you're going to biohack right around that MTHFR mutation and put that methyl B right into that back tire. You don't even have to have it reduced down because it's already done for you. So get the right form of B vitamins. Get a methylated form in that 3rd or 4th generation. Extremely important. Probiotics, I love probiotics. They're part of your innate immune system, your toll-like receptors. They help identify things in your body that shouldn't be there even before the adaptive immune system kicks in. This is important, especially for people that have MTHFR mutation and compromised immune system. They need probiotics. They need to reactivate those toll-like receptors, and they absolutely need the neurotransmitter production because they're not doing it on their own. Remember, neurotransmitters is one of the pathways that's disrupted. Well, we know that the mind to gut connection is what we call the enteric nervous system. It's your second brain. And probiotics are so specific to you, they're like a fingerprint. So this is really important because not every probiotic works for everybody. So you have to have a broad spectrum strain. Really, really important. So the gut, as we know, all health begins in the gut. We learned that, a couple hundred years ago, or even a couple thousand years ago. But neurotransmitters, they serve as a language for your brain. They talk to your brain, they tell you nutrient need, they tell you what kind of conversion is needed, and they can be very compromised due to glyphosate, and I'm going to show you how that works, but not right now. So they also determine assimilation of nutrients, how much you need, and they identify all foreign substances before the adaptive immune system kicks in and you create antibodies, which is kind of cool. I mean, if you can get something gone and out of the way prior to it actually getting to an antibody production in your body, that's your body doing its job. That's innate immune system and how it's supposed to work. They also determine, available energy. They help with sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight. Parasympathetic, they help calm that and rebalance it. So this enteric nervous system is our mental, emotional well-being. It is also our physical and nutrient needs. And it also determines mitochondrial energy and the need for biogenesis. And the biogenesis means cells splitting, and cells that need to die, they die, which is called autophagy, or cells that they can recycle parts and go to use new and healthy cells. Really important. So remember, we want to make sure that we are enhancing every pathway, and probiotics are key for people that have MTHFR, or what we call compromised methylation, which is basically everybody in the world. So you can utilize this protocol for everybody, and it's going to enhance them. Okay, so unless you live in a bubble, have no stress, have never been exposed to estrogen, and you sleep like a baby, which actually that's kind of a weird statement because babies don't sleep, but if you have really great sleep, you're going to need this protocol, and this should be a base protocol that you use with your clients. All right, so again, 100 trillion different bacteria. We can go on and on about the value and importance of probiotics. I can't stress it enough. They need to be on a really high quality probiotic that's guaranteed till expiration and has at least 12 different strains to help. Okay, so enzymes. Enzymes are another important factor. Remember when we talked about that bicycle, or the methionine cycle is the front wheel. It's the direction of what we're creating. And what really determines that methyl group attachment is the breakdown of protein. And if you don't have a good digestive system, you have compromised digestion, even if you take all the B vitamins in the world in the right forms, you will not have the right amino acids for them to attach to. So enzymes play a major role in the building blocks that we need for methylation pathway and for rebuilding DNA, RNA, immune system, hormones, and neurotransmitters. So a good quality enzyme would be something that I absolutely suggest that you utilize for your patients and clients so that you know that they're breaking down proteins into the right forms and that it's not just hanging out in their system and causing all kinds of fermentation and the overgrowth of candida. So one of the things that I want to talk to you about is a little bit of detoxification. I'm not a fan of throwing detoxes on a compromised body. I usually will build the methylation pathway for about 30 days, utilizing B vitamins and probiotics and enzymes and a few more products that I'm going to talk about. And then my second phase is normally to use a whole body cellular cleanse. And it's really important for a few reasons. Number one, we need to be creating enough glutathione. Now, adding the B vitamins is vital for that process, but also we have to get some toxicity out of the way as well. Now, I promised you I'd talk a little bit about glyphosate, and here's where it comes in. So let's just look at one of the pathways of an amino acid, glycine. Okay, so your body breaks down everything. You got methyl groups coming across, you got amino acids floating around waiting to attach to those methyl groups. And let's see, glycine is waiting. So it attaches, and one of the byproducts of this is ammonia, carbon dioxide, and of course it attaches to a methyl group, and now it's going to help reduce tetrahydrofolate to methylene tetrahydrofolate. One pathway of reduction, and then it goes on and on and on. Really important pathway. There's no one amino acid more important than the other. But the interesting thing about glycine is it only has one receptor site. It can only do one thing, and this is it. So if it doesn't attach here, it can become problematic in your system, because then it just floats around in your blood and it becomes an antigen, right? A foreign protein in the blood is called an antigen, and your body will start to make antibodies against it. So what happens if we're eating glyphosate-laden food? Well, glyphosate actually has the same chemical structure as glycine, and it can take the place on the receptor site. This is why it is so very important that you talk to your clients about organic, non-genetically modified, and even gluten-free when they have MTHFR mutation, because their body can be highly, highly affected by glyphosate. So I have clients that could be doing all the right things with the B vitamins and doing this, but little Jimmy, right, he only eats pasta, he only eats carbs, he only eats bread, and it's not organic. So I know that he's getting high levels of glyphosate, and I have to explain this little pathway to mama so she understands that it's important that we take it out. So long story short, glyphosate will take the place of glycine. So again, it still throws off ammonia and carbon dioxide, but here's the issue. It can't bind with this methyl group. So you're not getting the reduction of tetrahydrofolate to methylene tetrahydrofolate. So that process doesn't happen. So the process after this doesn't happen, and after that, and after that. And that one pathway can be a major neurotransmitter pathway for that child. So you may see sporadic behavior, uncontrolled emotions, screaming, whatever that may look like, whatever the symptomology of that is at the end. But here's the other thing it does. Now you have high glycine in the blood, because glycine can't go anywhere else, so it just floats around. You have low levels of folate, because we know that this conversion of folic acid didn't get reduced. So now folate, you have a deficiency, but you also have high levels of folic acid in the blood, which becomes toxic to the liver of these children. So you have high glycine, you might have an immune response to that, you're deficient, and you're toxic. Plus glyphosate, which we know causes all other kinds of issues with leaky gut and everything else. So this one thing has caused such a detriment in our pathway that we are actually losing our ability to break down to more bioavailable forms in our digestive system due to this one chemical. Really important that the whole world is aware of the dangers of this, not just for leaky gut and all the other things that it does, but for this particular pathway of methylation, glyphosate is a huge impact in a negative way on this entire process. So really important that we clean up our diets. Okay, so whole body cellular cleanse, this is really important. These type of cleanses will go in and help remove toxicity, help open elimination pathways. And again, I do build the methylation process for 30 days, and then I'll do a whole body cleanse for somebody. Yes, you may need to go further. You may need to do candida or parasites or heavy metals, whatever that looks like, but you got to open those pathways and you got to get nutrients in. I will say, if you're using a cleanse on somebody with MTHFR mutation, you need to have either a correct form of B vitamins within the cleanse, right? The reduce down the active bioavailable forms, or you need to utilize something in your protocol that is a methylated form of B vitamins. That is very important. Otherwise, they will not produce enough glutathione, and you may want to use things like that, and I'm going to talk about glutathione and NAC next, but they will not have enough ability to detoxify or repair, and the detox will actually be harder on their system and create more issues. So that's another just a little side point for you to note. Make sure you got a good quality whole body cellular cleanse with an activated form of B vitamins, NAC, vitamin C, or glutathione in it, or at least something that's going to generate that in the liver. And we're going to talk about that as well. Okay, so glutathione, as we talked about over and over again, our most important antioxidant. It is so important with the single nucleic polymorphisms to have enough glutathione so that you don't get this increased oxidative stress, which is why they start to produce homocysteine, because they can't convert it, and why high homocysteine levels in the blood are related to cardiovascular disease because it destroys the vessels of the body. And so you have high oxidative stress. Really important that we have enough glutathione, okay? So you have a lot of unchecked free radicals, a lot of unidentification of cancerous cells. So again, glutathione is needed by the liver in order to carry out all of the detoxification processes. We absolutely need this. So what do? Well, we need to have supplements that are going to biohack around it, because until your body, which is going to take about 90 days for you to rebuild your methylation pathway, until your body can actually do this on its own, and guys, you can. I just want to give you hope. As you biohack around this and you blow that back tire up with good B vitamins, and in the front, which is where we are now, we're in the methionine cycle, we start using things like buffered Z and vitamin E, which are major antioxidants, and N-acetylcysteine, right? NAC, we love NAC. Which is a major antioxidant, and it helps the body, right, cope with oxidative stress through the production of glutathione. And I'm going to show you where that happens in the methylation cycle. Or if you use a liposomal glutathione, that's good too. But whatever pathway you choose, in order to enhance this detoxification process, you have to choose one. And even if it's for the layperson or someone with the MTHFR mutation, this is so important for you to have. You can't just blow up the back tire and not help put some air in the front tire. So I love to use NAC and buffered C combination, because then the body produces the amount of glutathione it needs. Now some people like to use liposomal glutathione or other forms. That's fine too. I will use those at times, but I have to say I've had more success using N-acetylcysteine, methylated B vitamins, and vitamin C, especially in the buffered C, because then I can increase that without causing digestive issues. The other thing is, for MTHFR mutation, so important that you get a non-corn derived vitamin C. And 98% of vitamin C on the market comes from corn. So guys, you don't want corn derived, you don't want genetically modified, you don't want glyphosate laden, you want non-corn derived. And there's only a few companies that have it, and I'll share that with you at the end. Okay, so right here, if you can see on the second circle where it says SAMe, as we can see, here's that byproduct, homocysteine, coming down. It uses the enzyme CBS. It needs some B vitamins, B6 primarily, and right there, cysteine, it needs that N-acetylcysteine to create glutathione. Really important that we have those levels of N-acetylcysteine. Now, some people will come in and biohack right at the end and put in glutathione, but like I said, I like the body to make what it needs. So I'm a bigger fan of N-acetylcysteine and vitamin C, and maybe with a piggyback backer of liposomal glutathione if needed. Okay, so leaky gut. We hear this term so much. Now, there's very many forms of leaky gut. Again, I'm not going to give you a lesson in it, but I just want you to be aware of it. It's not a question of, do you have leaky gut? It is a question of how severe is that leaky gut. And anyone who has MTHFR mutation has leaky gut. So we absolutely 100% need to heal and seal the digestive tract in conjunction with boosting methylation, because of a few things. One of the things that you'll see with MTHFR mutation is high histamine levels. They react to every little thing. So the GI tract, we know that it's about 900 square feet. It covers the surface, right? It's a very large system. From tip to tail, that's your digestive system, and we can't ignore any part of it. But what happens is when you get this intestinal permeability, right, and those tight junctions start to separate, you get these foreign substances that can enter the body through the digestive tract, which is part of your immune system, or even food particles that are not broken down appropriately, leaking out into the bloodstream. And guys, Candida, which we always try to take out and kill and make him out to be a bad guy, he's actually a blood barrier protector. And he becomes systemic when there's something else in our body that we're trying to overcome, and leaky gut is one of those. He's going to try to protect the lining of your intestinal tract so that things don't leak out through those tight junctions. The issue is when he becomes overgrown, we have a secondary issue of what we call endotoxins, right? So there's so many things that cause leaky gut, anything from stress to pesticides, antibiotics, bacterial imbalance, which we call dysbiosis. But people with MTHFR SNPs, they are more likely to experience leaky gut in a severe form and have a secondary issue along with it of candida or heavy metals or something like that. So what happens is, after a period of time of maybe poor diet or high stress or toxicity or whatever that is, they start to have histamine responses. And so the one thing you may not realize is that methylation is responsible for the breakdown of histamine. And so when I see histamine, I know number one, they're probably eating something their body doesn't like, but even if they're eating good food, that tells me we have a methylation issue. We might even have an MTHFR mutation issue. And so that's going to just get me to ask better questions, okay? So many patients who have one or more methylation SNPs, single nucleic polymorphisms, heterozygous or homozygous, have a hard time breaking down histamine. And as the problem worsens, right, they may also experience histamine intolerance, which goes beyond basic food sensitivity. So now we have allergic reactions. You can have anaphylaxis. This is also because SAMe is dropping. So they're not converting enough homocysteine to create enough homocysteine conversion into the methionine cycle to create enough SAMe. So MTHFR SNPs, it's so complex, but again, I'm skimming the surface and we can break this down deeper in another lecture. But what happens is at this stage, there'll be a more severe imbalance in the gut microbiome. And so you have an imbalance. All the bad guys are taking over and all the good guys are dying off and they can't fight back. So gut bacteria produces what are called endotoxins when they're out of balance. And our food choices feed these bacteria, right? High sugar or undigested food. Guys, everything turns to sugar, okay? So we can't just say sugar's bad and protein's good. If someone has poor digestion for protein, it's all going to come down and feed candida. That candida is going to overgrow. We're going to get these endotoxins, and then that endotoxin, that's going to leak out into the bloodstream through those little tight junction holes, right? And it's not even the endotoxins, it's the waste, and that's even worse. So the waste impairs the methylation process by blocking methyl enzymes. It actually blocks the receptor sites like MAT, and MAT is used to create SAMe. So what's going to happen to these people who have candida? Foggy brain, psychosis, they might have depression, anxiety, anything that you can think of that you hear from your candida patients. So remember, start connecting the dots. It might just not be a candida issue, it could be a methylation issue as well. That's why I bring up methylation first, and then I go after all the toxins. So if MAT is blocked, that's an enzyme in the pathway, you don't get enough SAMe. Right? So we have to address leaky gut or the methylation protocol will not be successful, okay? So how do we biohack MTHFR? Well, lifestyle. You can't outrun a bad diet. You can't outrun a bad lifestyle. You know, at the end of the day, we are what we eat, drink, how we move, what we think, how we eliminate. All of that stuff makes up you and I, and we can't get away from it. So we have to address it, manage it, and make it as optimal as possible. So make sure you're talking to your clients about the foundations and having a healthy diet, drinking water, moving every day, doing cleanse protocols once or twice a year. Once you get past the first initial, make sure their sleep is really good. We can talk about, products for sleep if you need to. But you need to know why they're not sleeping, and then, absolutely balancing stress and emotional wellness, because we know that when you're emotionally unwell, the communication from your DNA to your genes changes. That's called epigenetics, and that's a whole other field. You need the right forms of supplementation. You need already available, bioavailable, methylated form of B vitamins and things that are going to fill the gaps where your body just can't code properly, especially if you have a mutation. You want to remove any type of, you want the right amounts of supplementation. What you're going to experience with your MTHFR clients is that they're very sensitive and you'll need to adjust. You have to adjust the amounts of your protocols. You can't just put them on one protocol and be like, good luck, Sally, I'll see you in a couple weeks. You may have to manage, especially the heterozygous compound, the amount of B vitamins, because once you put in good nutrition for these people, it's like stepping on the gas to a car. And you're revving their engine from 0 to 100, and they feel great for like 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden it becomes too much. So you might have to bring that supplementation down and then bring it back up. It's kind of like a parabola. So just keep that in mind as you learn more about MTHFR, and there's some great resources I can share with you. Make sure you're removing toxicity internally and externally. Toxic environment, mold. I usually recommend people get air filters. I recommend that, they go outside every day, breathe fresh air. Also EMF, that's going to be a high stress for people with MTHFR. Really important that we keep them as toxin-free internally and externally. You need to fix leaky gut. Remember, it's not a matter of do they, it's a matter of how bad is it. And then compliancy is key. There's a lot that goes with this. You want to phase this. And I'm going to give you a little protocol here at the end that you can follow and phase it. So make this program livable and also give hope. These people are going to walk into you with many, many things going on, and they're going to be very sick, and they're going to hear that they have this genetic polymorphism. It's like, oh my gosh, I have a genetic mutation. It's the end. It's not. We need to be able to tell these people, like, there have been great innovations in supplementation and science, and we're going to use that to go around and biohack everything so that we can give them hope as they walk out the door. So here's some of the protocols that I use and some of the supplements. You can fill in the gaps of your own. I like Nutritional Frontiers, and these are the protocols that I give. Super B Complete. Probiotics, I use their superbiotics. Enzymes, I always use a pre-digestive, and then if somebody has low hydrochloric acid, I'm going to want to make sure that we are stimulating the pancreas with enough hydrochloric acid, so I might give them something with betaine hydrochloride at the end of the meal, like Betazyme, for a period of time. I use NAC, which is NAC, and acetylcysteine and vitamin C, or you can use a liposomal glutathione, or both. It's totally fine to use both. You just have to learn to adjust it. Complementary products could be things for sleep, things to balance high estrogen. CBD, right? Full spectrum hemp extract oil is fabulous for MTHFR clients because it goes so many different pathways and works on those sirtuin receptors, those sirtuin pathways of homeostasis to keep inflammation down, pain down, blood sugar balance, all those sirtuin pathways. So I usually phase 1, I bring that up for about 30 days. Phase 2, I keep them on the methylation protocol, and I bring in that whole body cleanse. Now I like Remove Complete from Nutritional Frontiers because the Power Cleanse already has the methylated form of B vitamins and the NAC and the things that I need to make sure that we're optimizing detoxification and cellular repair. And then phase 3, again, I'm still keeping them on this methylation pathway, but then I start to fix leaky gut. And you want a product that's going to heal and seal. You want something with L-glutamine. GI Complete is one of my favorite. It has 5,000 milligrams of L-glutamine, along with many other products that heal and seal and soothe and do all the wonderful things through studies and studies that we've seen through science. But the most important thing to realize is as you take them through this pathway, as you blow up the air in the tires, right, they may need less, not more. So if you find that your clients are coming back to you saying, I was feeling great and now I'm not feeling as good, you may have to adjust their supplementation down. Because if you think about it, if we're at a 25% reduction of methylation and you add good innovation to that, good supplements in the right forms and the right amounts, and they feel great, well, their methylation pathway is going to increase, right? It's going to become more efficient. So now maybe they're running at 50%, and so maybe 90 days they're running at 75%. I don't need as many supplements at an optimal 75% as I needed at 25%. So it's kind of a reverse way of thinking. So as your clients begin to feel better and their methylation pathway increases, you may need a maintenance protocol, but it's not going to be as much as those therapeutic doses that you used in the beginning. So that's just something to keep in mind. So I hope this information was helpful to you. Again, I did not get into all the polymorphisms and the enzymatic processes. We can do that at a later time if you want to. But just remember, MTHFR mutation prevalence is huge in our country. You're looking at almost half the population, and it's not going to get any less. So this is something that you need to study and learn, and you can use these basic protocols to help everybody, but especially people that have MTHFR mutation. So that's it. Thanks for your time.
Tracey, thank you so much for joining us. What a great presentation that was. If anyone has any additional questions, you can email tracy@nutritionalfrontiers.com or check out Nutritional Frontiers website at nutritionalfrontiers.com. Just wanted to quickly highlight some of the exciting promotions we have going on our ZYTO systems this month. For a ZYTO Balance system, we're offering 2 months of free subscription, which is $100 in savings. If you have any questions or want to learn more info about that, you can look at zyto.com/promotion. For our ZYTO Select and Elite systems, we'll be offering 2 free biosurveys. The biosurveys will be our lifestyle biosurvey and our digestion biosurvey. If If you have any questions about that, you can go to ZYTO.com/pro-promotion. Before we go today, I just wanted to quickly highlight our ZYTO remote system. In this time of increased quarantines and restrictions on business, it can sometimes feel overwhelming to think about how you can continue to grow your client base if they can't come into the office for a scan. With the ZYTO remote system, you can ship a hand cradle to anywhere in the world, and as long as your client has access to a computer and internet, you can conduct your scans. This is a great tool to grow your client base and continue to flourish your business, and I encourage everyone to check it out. If you have any questions, there's a few links here below on the slides that might help you out. And as always, feel free to contact us if you have any additional questions. Thanks again for joining us this morning. We truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hear from our presenters. We also truly appreciate our presenters for coming on and sharing their knowledge and expertise. We hope that you'll tune in and join us next month. Our October webinar will be on October 7th at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. The link to register will be below. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.